While every analyst out there is still debating whether XRP will hit $3 or $5, something far more important just quietly happened. The entire premise of money just changed. Not in some white paper, not at a conference. Right now, software agents are waking up across the financial system. They're making trades, managing treasuries, settling transactions, and they don't have bank accounts. They can't. And that one detail, that single structural reality, is about to redirect trillions of dollars directly into the XRP ecosystem. This isn't being explained to retail investors the way it should be. So let me pull back the curtain, because what I'm about to walk you through is not a maybe. It is a design requirement already being built by Ripple, MasterCard, and the largest financial institutions on the planet. Welcome back. I'm glad you're here, because today we are not chasing a price candle. Today we are decoding the architecture of the machine economy and exactly where XRP sits inside of it. I don't do hype. I do structure. I do math. I do signal. Let's get into it. Let me start with the hard truth. Most people watching XRP right now are asking the wrong question. They're asking, when is the price going to move? What they should be asking is, who or what is about to become the largest new class of financial actors in history? The answer is not a country. It's not a hedge fund. It is software. AI agents, autonomous programs that can reason, plan, and execute, are being deployed right now across the financial world. And here is the critical detail that changes everything. AI agents cannot open a bank account. They are not legal entities. They cannot sign paperwork, pass KYC under traditional frameworks, or transact over the legacy banking rails that require human-linked identities. Traditional payment infrastructure was built for humans, and AI agents are not human. So what do they use? Think about this logically. If you have an AI agent that needs to spin up cloud resources at 2 a.m., pay for access to a financial data API, execute a micro-settlement across borders in under a second, it cannot wait 3 days for a wire transfer. It cannot pay $25 in SWIFT fees for a 12-pence transaction. The math doesn't work. The infrastructure doesn't exist in the legacy world. But on a blockchain, on a ledger built for instant, programmable, frictionless value transfer, the math works perfectly. Dan Moorhead of Pantera Capital said it plainly. AI agents will not be walking into marble column banks. They have to use electronic money. They have to use blockchain assets. And as these agents multiply, we are not talking about thousands. We are talking about millions, then hundreds of millions of autonomous economic actors. Every single one of them will need a wallet. Every single one of them will need a settlement layer. The question is, which one? Here is what Ripple has understood and quietly been building toward for years. The XRP ledger was not designed to be a speculative asset. It was designed to be financial infrastructure. And infrastructure doesn't care whether a human or a machine is using it. It just has to work. Fast, cheap, and at scale. That is exactly what the XRP ledger does. And that is exactly why Ripple is now moving aggressively to own the AI agent payment stack. Let's do the math, because the math here is staggering, and almost nobody in the retail space is running these numbers. McKinsey estimates that agentic payments made autonomously by AI systems, could reach $1 trillion in volume by 2030. Other analysts put the agentic share of global e-commerce at 15 to 25%. Global e-commerce is already a $6 trillion market. You do the math on what 20% of that looks like moving through programmable payment rails. But that's just retail e-commerce. Now think about cross-border payments. $150 trillion annually flowing through a broken, slow, expensive system. Now introduce AI agents into corporate treasury management, which is exactly what Ripple is doing with the G-Treasury acquisition. G-Treasury already processes trillions in annual payment volume. Trillions, with a T. And that platform is now being fused with Ripple's on-chain settlement rails. Here's where the math gets brutal for the skeptics. The XRP ledger settles transactions in 3 to 5 seconds. The cost per transaction is a fraction of a cent, fractions of what is called a drop, and there are 1 million drops in a single XRP token. That means the ledger can handle micropayments, $0.001, $0.01, 10 cents, the kind of payments that AI agents need to make constantly at machine speed that are literally impossible on traditional rails. Now overlay this. XRP has a fixed maximum supply of 100 billion tokens. Of the circulating supply, exchange reserves are sitting near multi-year lows, as reported by on-chain forensic analysts tracking crypto quant flow data. When institutional adoption begins absorbing available supply, not for speculation, but for operational liquidity in live payment corridors, the supply-demand math changes in one direction. This isn't a prediction, it's a structural requirement. You cannot run a trillion-dollar machine economy on an infrastructure that charges $25 per transaction and settles in 72 hours. The math forces the migration to on-chain rails. And Ripple has spent a decade making sure XRP is positioned to be the liquid bridge asset when that migration arrives. Now, let me show you the institutions, because this is where the retail crowd is missing the signal completely. Ripple and T54 Labs. Ripple joined a $5 million seed round for an AI agent infrastructure startup, building identity, risk, and trust layer infrastructure for autonomous software agents. Not a prototype, not a whiteboard concept, a functioning trust layer for agents executing real financial transactions. Monica Long, president of Ripple, tied this directly to DeFi on the XRP ledger, saying Ripple expects DeFi adoption to scale into 2026, and framing T54's stack as required infrastructure as agents start managing real capital. That language, required infrastructure, is not marketing. That is engineering language. The X402 protocol on the XRP ledger. An X42 facilitator is now live on the XRP ledger, allowing AI agents to pay for services using XRP and RLUSD over standard HTTP. No API keys, no traditional accounts. An agent hits a paywall, a server responds with HTTP 402, payment required. The agent pays instantly, settlement happens on-chain. Volume is accumulating on the XRP ledger right now. This puts XRP alongside Coinbase's Base Chain and BNB Chain as one of the only ledgers already integrated into the machine-native payment protocol. The architecture is not coming, it is live. Ripple and MasterCard. MasterCard's CEO, Michael Miebach, confirmed they are moving from concept to execution with Ripple. The current pilot routes MasterCard credit card settlement through RLUSD, a dollar-pegged stablecoin issued by Ripple, over the XRP ledger. This is one of the first tests of fully regulated fiat card settlement over a public blockchain. And MasterCard is simultaneously launching Agent Pay, a framework to register, verify, and tokenize AI agents so they can transact over MasterCard's network using agentic tokens. If RLUSD becomes the standard settlement rail for MasterCard, and MasterCard becomes the payment layer for AI agent commerce, the same asset on the same ledger is now powering both. That is not a coincidence. That is infrastructure design. G Treasury acquisition. Ripple acquired G Treasury, valued at approximately $1 billion, to expand directly into corporate treasury management. G Treasury serves 1,000 corporate clients across 160 countries and processes trillions in annual payment volume. And under its previous owner, G Treasury launched a feature called GS Smart AI, embedding agentic capabilities into treasury platforms to proactively spot risk, reduce manual workflows, and recommend strategic financial actions. These are not static analytics tools. These are agents, and those agents are now wired into Ripple's on-chain settlement network. Ask yourself this brutal question. Does a company like MasterCard, with 3.3 billion cards and trillions in transaction volume, move into a live blockchain settlement pilot without absolute certainty about the legal and technical foundation underneath it? The answer is no. They don't gamble. The window for understanding what is being built here before it is priced in is closing. Here is why this moment is different. Q2 and Q3 of 2026 represent a convergence of catalysts that the smart money has been mapping for months. The Digital Asset Clarity Act and complementary stablecoin legislation moving through Congress are setting the regulatory framework that institutions have been waiting for before committing fully public capital to on-chain settlement. The moment that clarity lands, the risk premium on XRP-based infrastructure collapses. The wait-and-see money becomes all-in money. Simultaneously, Ripple's product stack is reaching a critical integration density. You now have T54's trust layer, the X402 protocol, RLUSD as a regulated stablecoin, G Treasury's corporate client base, and the MasterCard settlement pilot, all converging on the XRP ledger inside the same 12-month window. This is not product development. This is the deployment phase. The pipes are built. Now the volume flows through them. Larry Fink of BlackRock called it plainly. Tokenization of financial assets and AI are the two megatrends that will totally reshape financial services. When the CEO of the world's largest asset manager names your thesis as his two macro bets, that is not a signal you ignore. Here is what you need to understand about supply. XRP has a hard cap, 100 billion tokens, fixed forever. Of the circulating supply, exchange reserves have been declining, tokens migrating off exchanges into institutional custody and operational liquidity pools. Once a token enters a multi-sig institutional vault to serve as a bridge asset in a live payment corridor, it does not come back to market for a 10% gain. It is operationally committed. Now add the machine economy on top. If millions of AI agents each require wallets, and those wallets hold operational XRP balances to fuel transactions, you are introducing an entirely new class of demand against a fixed supply that was never designed to accommodate it. We are moving from an era of speculative abundance to an era of functional scarcity. The window where retail participants can accumulate at current prices exists precisely because most of the market is still asking, when will the price move, instead of why will the structure of demand permanently change? Those are two very different questions. And right now, one of them has an answer that is sitting in plain sight for anyone paying attention. I know some of you watching have been holding XRP through cycles that tested your patience. I know the noise, the macro headlines, the sideways price action, the endless debate can make it feel like nothing is happening. Let me be direct with you. That feeling is the signal working exactly as designed. Institutions do not accumulate into rising prices. They accumulate into confusion, frustration, and silence. The silence is not emptiness. It is the sound of infrastructure being bolted together behind closed doors. Ripple did not acquire G Treasury in a bull market. They did not seed T54 at a price peak. These are the moves of architects, not speculators. Being early in a structural shift feels exactly like being wrong, right up until the moment the volume arrives and the thesis becomes obvious to everyone. By the time it's obvious, the positioning window has closed. The question you should be sitting with is not whether AI agents will use blockchain. They already are. The question is, who will still be holding the bridge asset when the machine economy reaches full operational scale? Here is the bottom line. AI agents are becoming economic actors. They need programmable money. They need instant settlement. They need a trust layer. They need a ledger that was built for exactly this use case, before this use case was even named. Ripple has spent a decade building that ledger, and in the last 90 days, They have quietly assembled the most complete AI agent payment stack in the industry. This is not theory. T54 is live. X402 is live. RLUSD is live on MasterCard's network. G Treasury is being integrated. The architecture is complete. Price is a distraction. Infrastructure is the reality. If you understand what was covered today, drop the word machine in the comments. I want to see who is actually paying attention. If this kind of structural analysis is what you come here for, subscribe, because we're just getting started. Stay rational, stay positioned. The math doesn't lie, and the system is almost complete.